It is always the unknown that is most frightening.
Jeez.
He's not in his right mind. He can't be trusted.
Something very strange is happening. I am being framed. My work computer's been compromised.
I need you to let me help you.
Do you have any idea who might want to destroy Dr. Hoffman?
Someone is trying to ruin my life.
Dr. Hoffman, can you hear me?
Alex, are you even listening?
In the past few years, I feel like you've been more selective with your roles. So I was really intrigued what drew you to the Fear Index in particular.
Well, Left Bank sent it to me, who are the producers of The Crown. And Andy Harris prefaced it with, I love the book. We don't have the script fully figured out yet, but will you read the book and then speak to some people who I think are going to make it? And so I read the book and I loved it. I thought, I've read something else of Robert Harris's in the past. I can't remember what it was. Did I read Pompeii? I read something about Robert Harris's a long time ago, and I hadn't read anything else until now. And I just love his attention to. Have you read his book? Do you know anything?
No, I have not read his books.
Okay. Well, the book is fantastic. And what Robert Harris does is he's kind of, he was a journalist originally, and then he became sort of a historical fiction writer. And I think he might take umbrage with that personification, but he does write a lot of historical pieces. And what I found really amazing about this book is that, yes, it's a thriller. Yes, it's steeped in the psychology of the character. And yes, it's based off of Frankenstein. But it seems like it's trying to investigate a time and place that is modern, that is current, and in a very historical sense. So you get a lot of asides from the character thinking about different places in Geneva and how they relate to historically, how they relate to the predicament that he's in now. And you get this kind of overview of three different sections of modern life. One is money, one is family, and one is science, and how they overlap. I just thought the book was extraordinary. And so my hope was to create something with Andy Harris and Left Bank that was going to have that same sort of feel, but also be really entertaining for audiences.
You know, like you said, the book is it's super popular. There's a lot of fans already because it's so pacey and so addictive. Do you feel a pressure perhaps from the fact that there are so many fans who love the book, or were you just free to kind of go and do your version, as it were?
Oh, I absolutely feel pressure to try to live up to the book, because I want the show to do it as well. I mean, I was a fan of the book before the show even existed, obviously. So I would say as I'm very rarely awestruck by people, starstruck, I guess is the word. But I am starstruck by authors, and I find authors to be the most intriguing people in the world. So when I was able to meet Robert Harris just over Zoom like this, I was almost rendered dumb, like I couldn't speak. But I found, yes, so I always have a great reverence for the material if I'm doing something based on a book. I didn't direct this. I actually haven't seen it yet, unfortunately, because I'm about to start shooting something else, and my bandwidth for being able to kind of separate myself from a character that I did in the past and move into a new one. And all I can see when I'm looking at my own work is what I've done wrong, and I can't really focus on the positives. And it's part of the human condition. I hope it's not just me. I decided I'm just not going to watch it yet. I'll watch it later. So I don't know exactly how David put this together, Caffrey, the director, but what we shot was very intriguing, and it was very fast paced and had a lot of moving parts. And I hope that it comes across well. I mean, you could tell me more, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it, and I like, I haven't seen it all, but I like that it's just 4 episodes. So I feel like it really keeps the pace, that it's not drawn out from what I've seen at all. It's not like an 8-episode, 10-episode thing unnecessarily. So I thought that was really great.
We definitely didn't want to have any filler in there. We wanted to keep it going. And sometimes when you try to expand a book to 10 episodes, which is done quite often, it can be a lot of vamping, and so yeah, there's no wasted time here. We only did 4 hours, and I think it works well. They tried for a while to make it into a 2-hour film, but there's just too much in the story to be able to cut it back to 2 hours.
Yeah, you risk skipping too much stuff then, right?
Stuff, yeah.
So you obviously you know the book really well, and I know you haven't seen the show yet. But I wondered, what did you find surprising about the process of the adaptation? Was there a moment that surprised you, like a change or a different approach, perhaps, anything like that?
Well, I mean, because it's television, because it's 4-hour episode or an hour episodes divided into 4, I think the pressures for David and Nuala and the other producers was to create something that will have that 4-act arc in which you leave people excited at the end and ask a bunch of questions of each episode and then bring them back, which is not inherently in the book. So that obviously had to be dealt with. And I think trying to create the characters, we want to keep it all within the day that it takes place. And in the book, you're allowed flashback. So we didn't have any of that. That was difficult to kind of create the, not necessarily difficult, but we wanted to be able to create the character relationships and make them as real as possible without having to allude to how they met and what they'd gone through in the past, which was very important in the book. So there are lots of changes that had to take place, but hopefully none of them were compromised.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I saw. You mentioned earlier that character separation aspect, from different projects, and I wondered, was that also an issue within this project? Just because it's a very tense show, your character is going through so much in such a compressed time. So do you ever find it hard to switch off after filming, or was it very much your personal life, your work life?
Well, it's funny, I didn't have a personal life. We were shooting this in Budapest, and we were shooting 6 days a week. And as you can see, it was a lot to take on in, you don't know how long we shot for. I think we shot for about 8 weeks, 10 weeks at most. And so we had to shoot, sometimes 7-8 pages a day. So my life was get up very early, get in the car, go to work, start shooting, come back home, eat some dinner, work on my work for the next day, go in, do it again. And on Sundays, I would hang out, I would decompress with the other cast because we couldn't see anybody else because it was lockdown. And we'd have a couple glasses of wine or some food and just discuss the show. So we really didn't have time off over the course of filming this. There just wasn't anything to do, and so there was no personal life. So no, I didn't switch off very much. It was we were fully engaged almost the whole time.
Was that intense? Was that a challenge?
It was very intense because this character is losing his mind, and we shot it out of order. So I had to find a way to sort of map the whole thing and give myself an arc that made sense and wasn't, so it works. So you believe that he's going through something in linear time. But it was very intense. I would say it's the hardest job I've ever had to take on, based purely on the fact that it was so much work in such a short period of time.
Oh wow, it sounds a lot, yeah. Well, on a positive flip side of that, I wondered, what was your favorite aspect of working on the show? Was there maybe perhaps a particular scene or moment, or perhaps even something behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, behind the scenes, I loved working with these actors. Greg, Archer, Layla, they're all really professional, obviously, but very, just very intelligent, very smart, very kind people, and a lot of fun. So we had to have some fun in the course of this intense filmmaking process. So we, even on set when we'd come up on a line, it was always, there was a sense of us being in it together, which was great. Nobody was trying to outdo the other ones and undermine them. We were all a little true. We knew how much we had to do in such a short period of time. So we had to really bolster each other and keep each other afloat. And yeah, so I think the best part of making this was being able to work with these other actors and the scenes in which I don't want to give anything away, but at the end there's this warehouse and there's a lot of stuff happening in it, and there was a very large scale sort of set, and it was pretty remarkable, actually. I loved working in that space because it's basically me in this giant warehouse. I'm not going to say much about it, but it was a fun stage to be on.
Yeah, I appreciate you don't want to spoil anything, which is fine. But of course, because spoilers are the worst. But I wondered, do you think fans of the book will be surprised by the direction it takes, perhaps towards the end, or?
Yeah, there are elements of change that were necessarily changed because of budgetary restrictions, but it's faithful in its intent. It has the same character arcs, including the one for the AI. And since this is based on Frankenstein, it's the monster still gets his due, and Frankenstein still doesn't turn out. It doesn't come off that well. There were certain things that we couldn't do just because it was basically we couldn't set me on fire and jump me off a building. That was going to happen.
Well, it's really intriguing though. I'm really, because I haven't read the book, but I read around the book, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out. There's a scene in episode 1. There's a sex scene, and I wondered, you've done a lot of sex scenes over the years in different films and shows, and I wondered, how has that process evolved? Because I feel like these days there's so much more consideration with intimacy coordinators and this kind of thing. Does it feel different?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. Now there's a very clear, there's somebody on set in intimacy. I think intimacy coordinator. I think you said it right. Who kind of goes through everything with you beforehand. It's not a director shouting at you like, take your pants off. That's not. It doesn't work like that anymore. So it does feel much more comfortable. At the same time, I find sex scenes to be ridiculous, and I think almost all actors do, and you just have to kind of laugh your way through it. Otherwise, it's too embarrassing. But there's also not a bunch of crew members just standing around anymore watching, which is helpful. So it is a little bit more dignified, I guess, than it used to be. But it's still ridiculous. Sex scenes are awful.
Yeah, I'm obviously I'm not an actor. I can't get my head around just that process in general. But yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned I read some previous interviews where you mentioned leaving big budget Hollywood, if you will, for a while to kind of look after yourself and just kind of create a distance. And I was just wondering, if you don't mind me asking, what have you kind of not put in place, but like what's different now? How do you approach the work these days in comparison to that?
Well, I'll talk about what's going on now with me, but I've answered these questions about leaving the industry, but I left the industry for about 18 months to go back to Hollywood or go back to Minnesota and spend some time with my friends and family, because I've been working for since I was 18 years old. Yeah. And I miss them. But I've talked about this so much that I feel like it's just lost its way. I've made some jokes about things because I've talked about it so much that I've lost interest in the conversation myself, and I made some jokes, and those become headlines. And it's all anybody seems to want to. They want to paint me with this brush, or the internet seems to want to say that I had it all, and somehow I'm crazy to have left it or something. I didn't necessarily. That's not exactly what happened. So I've talked about it ad nauseum. So I kind of feel like I'd rather focus on what's happening now, which I think is great, and just sort of leave that stuff, because it's been 15 years since I've been answering these questions. I feel like at this point it's out there. There's been a lot written about it. For me, what's happening now is the most intriguing part of my life. I'm different now than I was in my early 20s and teens. I'm in my 40s. I'm very happily in my 40s. I have a great family, and I'm working with some of the best directors in Hollywood, and I'm just gonna keep plugging away. I feel very lucky to be able to have worked in this industry for 25 years and have never had a point in it where I've been desperate. It's very unusual and very lucky. So I just feel blessed.
That's great.
Hashtag blessed. I hate that word now. Fucking the internet ruins everything. Blessed is a good word. Now you can't say it.
Yeah, they've sucked on meaning now. Well, thank you for answering that question. I hope I didn't mean to phrase it in a let's talk about the past kind of thing. I did want to focus more on how things have changed. So yeah, I hope I didn't.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
But yeah, I appreciate you answering.
Sure.
And so actually, I did want to talk about your career, but in a very much more broader sense. Just I wanted to ask, you've achieved so much, so many great shows and films, and I wondered, what are you most proud of achieving? Just looking back, it could be something very recent, something in the past. What are you most proud of?
Well, I mean, I, in general terms, I'm proud of the fact that I've always been willing to explore new concepts, whether that be working with a fresh out of film school director because I enjoyed their vision on their short film or whatever, to working with Guy Ritchie on the first film we worked together where my character there was no character for me to play. And we made it up as we went along. My character was just a name in the script and the butt of two jokes. There was no dialogue for the character. And Guy called me in and said, there's nothing for you here, but we're gonna make it up as we go. And so we improvised that whole character, even put me into scenes I wasn't supposed to be in, lots of scenes I wasn't supposed to be in, and we just kind of went off and found a way. The fact that what I'm most proud of is that even though the industry doesn't necessarily prize this, I've always been interested in experimentation and seeing how far I can push things in a different direction. And this film is no different. Like this, I've never played a character like this, and the fact that we had very little time to shoot it was a challenge that I'd never expected. So it was, in a way, it ties back into the show, because what I'm proud of is that when I see something I'm afraid of, I usually am drawn to doing it, as opposed to running away from it. And it's easy in a way to sit back, not easy, but you do have to work very hard at crafting a career, but it's much easier to craft a career that is within the bounds of a structure that has already been created by other actors and other filmmakers, and people understand it, because then they can, they think people like to understand who they're working with. But for me, it's always been a challenge to kind of push myself into corners that I don't quite understand at the beginning of the process, and trying to figure out what it's about that intrigues me. And so that's it. I mean, that was a long-winded way of saying I like challenges.
No, it was great though. And tying back to the Fear Index again more, I've just got time for one more question. And it's
Sure.
just, I guess it's just a quick one, but I wanted to know, why do you think people should watch? Why should people get involved and binge these 4 episodes?
Well, I think it's a very timely story, because it involves a lot of things that we're talking about these days. Unchecked power being one of them. The world of scientific discovery is, within the scientific community, has its checks and balances, but once someone moves out of that, like this character moves out of it and into the financial world or tech world, sometimes these CEOs have just no one looking over their shoulder. And if someone has that sort of access, has created something that is dominating on the internet, and you can't, there's no oversight, it can be dangerous. I mean, it's the same story that Frankenstein was. Be careful what you wish for, you might get it. And that's at the same time. So I think that's a really good lesson or message that I think would resonate with a lot of people these days. But also, it's about that world of finance and science and where they meet. And I find that intriguing myself, and I assume other people will. And it's a thriller. So it moves fast, and it has a lot of scary elements, things that are both internal and external that Alex has to deal with. And as I think I said in the trailer, fear is one of the most motivating factors or emotions in the human condition. And I think we all like to be scared a little bit, and this show should scare you. So watch it. Yeah.